Here we go, Joe. Here we go, Joe. Let's go, Joe. It is April the 30th, 2025. It's a Wednesday. Welcome back to Control Room. It is the last day of the month of April. Tomorrow is May Day. My fellow comrades, I wish you a praznikum, okay? Celebrate wonderful May Day tomorrow. Remember, and remember, tomorrow would have been May Day Thursday, and Thursday night was, what night was Thursday night, Dave? Whose show was on? Winslow Carver, the Communist Hour. Oh my, I just remembered that. So it would have been Communist Hour Thursday on May Day. Wow, what a coincidence. Hey folks, speaking of political activism and all that kind of stuff, here's my sign. If you see me on the street, you're going to notice me holding a sign reminding everybody to vote Thursday 8 to 4 at Town Hall, or Friday 8 to 12:30 at Town Hall, or you can't do that, then get to the polls at the high school on May the 3rd at the high school, Saturday 9 to 4. And remember to clean out Town Hall, all right? That's the motto. Now, there's something else I want to share, just a little public interest note. Did anybody go to the dog day down at the town green last Sunday? Did anybody go? It was a great time. I mean, I don't have a dog. I can't afford a dog, but it was a great event if you're into puppies. And I bought a calendar. There's an organization called Vesta Dog, and it's a really cool calendar. I encourage you to check out Vesta Dog, www.mavestadog, vestadog.org. And what they do is they support law enforcement in terms of equipping and protecting service animals, you know, police dogs and stuff like that. And guess what? One of Marshfield's own is Mr. April. There he is right there. Mr. April is Robert Rady. He's the canine officer. And the dog is Canine Fox. That's the dog's. I didn't even know that's the dog's name. Canine Moose and Tonko. That's from the other town. That's from the Mass Environmental Police was March. But Robert Reedy is here pictured on the April 2025 calendar slot with Fox. There he is. And you know, you might remember, speaking of old timers, back in the days of Winslow, Rusty Tremonti had a show here. And Rusty was, I think he gave Marshfield its first shepherd. He gave it, the first one or two shepherds was donated by Rusty Tremonti to the Marshfield Police Department, and rest his soul and rest Winslow's soul. Now, we have a guest here, so I don't want to keep waiting too long, but we're going to get through a couple of more things. Rich Greer is with us here tonight, and I tried to keep him out, but he forced his way in, but that's okay. We like Rich. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. What I want to say is that we just got through town meeting, and I tell you, it was a stressful experience. Leading up to it, there was some very contentious and controversial meetings of the select board and the advisory board. There was a lot going on with regards to school budget information. Wasn't quite gelling and becoming clear to us. It was just a lot of turmoil. And on top of that, we had the town administrator was asked to resign. And the town administrator is the main contact point. He's at the nexus of preparation of the budget and town meeting presentations related to the select board. So this is a key figure. So he goes right at the most critical point, and there's a lot of other questions still swirling around about the content of the budget and the numbers around the budget. And the bottom line is that all the budget items got pulled out of the town meeting warrant. And the town meeting was successfully concluded, if you want to call it that, on Monday without sans all the big budget items. We got through CPC, Community Preservation Act, CPA, Community Preservation Act items, and a few other minor expenditures. But the main thing is that it was really crazy, unusual town meeting. And looking at what was pulled out of the warrant, I think gives us some clues as to what happened. And it is probably, in my opinion, related to why Mike Maresco was asked to resign. Okay? And among the things that got pulled out of the warrant, and this was the warrant when it was first issued in a white cover here. It then appeared at Monday night in a green covered document here. But besides the budget items, what else disappeared from the special town meeting warrant? And this, I think, provides a clue as to what may have had been going on inside Town Hall during the lead up to Mike Maresco's departure and the alteration of the town meeting warrant. To me, the town meeting warrant was fixable. They had weeks to iron out the issue regarding the money that was going to South Shore Vocational Tech. There was a $710,000 payment that was due to South Shore Vocational Tech that had to be appropriated this month. There was another payment on top of that to South Shore Vocational Tech for their stabilization fund of $39,000. So about $750,000 needed to be appropriated to pay to the South Shore Vocational Tech because we're now in their district. But there was another article and that could have been fixed. But there was another article that got pulled on April 24th, the Thursday before town meeting. Okay, and that article was Article 5 of the special town meeting, which stated at the start here, I'll tell you, will the town vote to authorize the select board to lease on terms and conditions acceptable to the select board the installation and operation of solar panels at the dog park? Now you remember, this is reason why I think Mike Maresco was probably in hot water, in my opinion. I'm not saying this is what happened to him. We voted on, and a contract was executed to build solar panel array at the town dump, at the landfill on Clay Pit Road. What happened after that? Inside that article that was voted several years ago, it said the select board could tweak it. They could tweak the contract. What happened, however? Several solar projects then got added around town, including this one at the dog park. Now, myself and a couple of other concerned residents began digging into this, and it was our opinion that these contracts, these additional contracts, were not authorized by the voters, which they're supposed to be, and they were probably illegal, along with an attempt to sell to the voters a $3.5 million roof refurbishing project, which was a no-bid contract in essence. And the roof contracts were sort of tied to the installation of solar panels on the schools, so they were connected. Now, when we went to town meeting to talk about the solar panels going on the school buildings, and maybe Rich Greer can give us a little insight in this in a minute, we were told we had to vote for this package of work. It was a combination solar panel and roof refurbishment project, and we had to vote on it, and it was back, well, first, here's Bob Galvin and the select board discussing the removal of Article 5 from the town meeting warrant. This was last Thursday.
So Article 5 had a lot to do with the solar concept, and there were several people in the room that were looking for real details on what this was about. And my impression was that we weren't at that point prepared with the details to what this meant. So I'm just suggesting that we move to indefinitely postpone this, and we will talk about this and revisit all of these concepts when we talk about solar in the future. And is there anything you'd like to say about that? But that's my recommendation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Eric?
I mean, I don't have a problem with the postponement of it. With the advisory board and select board meeting, there were certainly questions raised in regards to the matter. The only thing is, I just look at it that I don't know. I don't want to postpone it because I think we can
indefinitely postpone it.
This isn't being recessed.
Yeah,
This is being pulled off the warrant. When we say
Right.
definitely postpone, we
but
mean,
there's a possibility we're going to revisit this, right?
you as a select board would have to decide to put it back on a future warrant.
Well, I mean, give me your thoughts, because this is my look at it.
Okay.
Is it has stirred up a conversation, right? And we want to get feedback from people in regards to how they feel about this and going forward. The only thing is that it allows us to. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that my look at is that keep it on the warrant and let's get feedback from people in regards to what their thoughts are on it. And that way we'll have something established in regards to the residents' concerns or, I won't say concerns, but thoughts maybe on it, whether it's negative or positive. That way, if we do come back, at least that way we have some kind of input, not just from the advisory board committee, as well as us, but also some of the residents with regards to how this is going to work, and then we can take it from there. I would say that it would probably get defeated, but like I said, even if it passes, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to take it up. If I'm reading that correctly.
You know, look at, I think you, as a board, have come up with a really good idea tonight. You've talked about a public forum. It's obvious that people want to talk about this, okay? And there's a zillion perspectives on this.
Now, see, no, the board didn't come up with a good idea, Bob Galvin. Eric Kelly wants to further explore this. But you see what happens is it's obvious that Miss Fiddler knows what the plan is from the very get-go, that this article is not just postponed, it is dead. It is gone and buried, okay? Why? Why is it dead and buried? Because when we went to a meeting earlier this year, earlier in April, when we had the discussion that they're referring to with the advisory board, this article was on the warrant for discussion, and I asked, well, how old is this agreement to put solar panels? And Maresco said it was like an agreement that was signed like 5 years ago. And so people began asking, including Rick Smith, well, is the contract still valid? And so shouldn't we have a new contract? And Mike Maresco said, well, we could put it out to bid. And then Bob Galvin said, well, we should put it out to bid. And then Bob Galvin said, well, we will put it out to bid. So there was something, we knew there was something wrong with all these extra contracts that were signed without authorization, okay? And we uncovered it, okay? That was a big, to me, it looks like it was a big, big no-no. And now realizing how much they stepped into it, it's like, it's dead. And Lynn Fiddler knew right at the start, before the start of this meeting, and that's my judgment, and you can make your own judgment, she knew it was absolutely dead. Don't even talk about it. But Eric does, see, Eric's not in the inner circle. He's not clued in as to what the game plan is. And this is where Eric is at a big disadvantage. So Bob Galvin then says, oh, the board's come up with a great idea. No, they haven't. The board, namely Fiddler, wanted it dead from the start. Eric's the one that wanted to explore it. And I agree with Eric. They should actually put a board up at the dog park with a survey question. What do you users of the dog park want to see here? Would you like to see a big giant steel superstructure with solar panels on it? Or do you want to see a bunch of nice cottonwood trees or something like that? What would you like to see? Okay, but no, this was a contract that Mikey Maresco had executed way back, okay, without authorization. And don't forget, now see how quickly they had to abandon it and toss this into the harbor. But what were they telling us back at the meeting in early 2024 when we were questioning the solar panel projects and the roof replacements? What was Galvin saying then?
Mr. Lynch, I just asked the town administrator and the facilities manager. There's an existing agreement with the solar company to install solar on these roofs. The solar company has expended a significant amount of money already to study what needs to be done to modify things and make this appropriate to do this. There's a financial consequence to the town in the event that we do not fulfill our obligations and appropriate the money to put this on the roof.
I mean, that's like a threat. we are going to be penalized if we don't vote this. It's like MBTA zoning. If you don't vote for it, you're going to be penalized, even though the law says you have to vote to accept zoning. Here we are, Bob Galvin, the same tactic. You better vote for this or we're going to penalize you. Well, what penalty? Where's the contract? Who signed it? Bob Galvin. If you know the contract and the consequences of not fulfilling the contract, did you also know that maybe it was an illegal contract? I'm just asking the question. That's the way it looks to me, okay? So that's, I think, was a key thing that they pulled that article. And you notice in the press release that Town Hall put out prior to this, or at the time that, or right after they had that meeting on last Thursday, didn't mention Article 5. They just said the financial articles were being pulled, but they didn't say, oh, and by the way, we're pulling Article 5. So there's a clue there as to what was going on all these last several weeks. And as far as the town meeting goes, I mean, it really led to, I don't know, almost pandemonium, because it really threw everybody off. And of course, a lot of people were there very much upset about a proposal to change some zoning regulations that applied to the Brant Rock Village Overlay District. And I think that was the main draw for the meeting. And there was like 700 people showed up Monday night. And that's like three meetings in a row when we had 700 plus people show up. So here's a little bit of a montage of what happened at the town meeting. And here's some input from people like Steve Lynch and Barry Cornwall. Barry Cornwall made it to the meeting. Listen to this.
This is probably the fourth or fifth time we have heard it mentioned that there was an error in the accounting process of the transfer and fund.
Please.
And I, for one, find this totally unacceptable. Going along with this, I have to point out that we've had major turnovers in our financial team, the treasurer collector and the town accountant. We're now, I believe, on our fourth set in the last 7 or 8 years. That too is a warning sign. Please, Select Board, take leadership and solve this problem.
While I do appreciate the words that you guys have delivered tonight, this proposed change is not for the prosperity of Brant Rock. This is for the apartment complex you want to build for your profits. Apartment complexes that will not be affordable to the average young person in Marshfield. I make $62,000 a year. I guarantee I would not be able to afford one of the apartments in this building. The traffic's going to get even worse in that area in the summer, even worse on the 3rd of July. What do you think's going to happen when we have 87 apartment units? Probably 2 people to one of those units. We're going to have 160 new people coming in that area every day. Do you honestly say that is for the best of Brant Rock?
Could you just please say it simply?
It's as simply as I can say it. If you vote in favor of this article, you are
I'm
voting...
I'm not asking for me. If you vote in favor of the article, you're voting for the change in elevated parking that the proponent is seeking. If you vote against the article, you're voting for no change in the current bylaw.
Correct. You're voting
So
for the bylaw...
that's putting it simply.
The bylaw
Can you just tell
currently
us what
states
the-
that you need...
What they motioned was to do?
And that's why this article, I obviously support it, because I want to see these kids out in that field playing baseball. I'm obviously very biased, but I do think it's the greatest game in the world, and the life lessons you learn in this thing cannot be replaced. Showing up every day, having bad days, having good days, and having to show up the next day and do it all over again. That's not just baseball, that is life.
I spent, no, not hours, days researching every one of these articles by going to advisory board meetings, selectmen's meetings, watching them on TV, and I mean, a lot of my time. So when I get up here, I can ask questions that I already know the answer to, but I want them to know the answer to. But no, you guys screwed the budget up so bad, we have to come back in a month to do this. It's outrageous. Your financial team is a disaster, and it's not fair to the taxpayers of Marshfield to have to do this.
And Steve Lynch is an example of a citizen putting in their time without getting paid, okay, without having any tangible benefit, like realizing a windfall or a profit or something like that, without any personal benefit or recompense or anything like that. Now that montage, and that's the thing that they claim they want you to do. They want you to participate. They want you to be, oh yeah, you got to be an active citizen. You want to get to serve on a board. You got to come to the meetings and stuff like that. But it really gums up the works when people actually take them up on the word. Now that montage was a little bit of everything. We started out with a mention about it was a reference to the Brant Rock Rotary overcharge. There was a reference to the Brant Rock zoning in there. There was Lou Maloney referring to the ball field project. That's like about $1 million in ball field and projects, $2 million ball field and projects, ball field improvements in town. And then back to Steve Lynch again. Again, a citizen putting in his time. So again, town meeting resumes on June 2nd when we're going to take up the financial articles, the budget articles. That's June 2nd, Monday, June 2nd. That's more than a month away. But it's going to come fast, and it's going to come right on the heels of Memorial Day. So hopefully you'll be have recovered from Memorial Day. The other thing that's coming up again is the election on Saturday. You can vote at Town Hall now on Thursday, tomorrow. You can go to Town Hall from 8 to 4 and vote. You have to fill out an absentee ballot application. Now that you can, I mean, if you can't be there before 9, after 9 or before 4, you're entitled to ask for an absentee ballot. If you're going to be out of town, if you're going to the Kentucky Derby, okay, if you're got a First Communion or anything else like that going on, then you go there tomorrow from 8 to 4, and on Friday from 8 to 12, I forgot my own notes here, from 8 to 12:30, and you can vote. You have to be allowed to vote. Otherwise, be there Saturday here at the high school from 9 to 4. This is a critical election, and this is a chance to reset Town Hall. We need a clean start right now after all the turmoil. Some of the turmoil could have been fixed, I still say, but a lot of it was really endemic, systemic, okay, or some combination thereof. Now, one of the things that caused a little bit of much of a kerfluffle was the school budget. That was one element of the budget that a lot of people had expressed a lot of consternation over. But we were told it was all worked out. There was a press release from the town of Marshfield, March the 17th. There was already discussion. Now, the school department knew, and we'll ask Rich to confirm this, that we owed the South Shore Vocational Tech School $710,000 because of the students that we have at the South Shore Voc Tech now. It was like 30 or so, 30 plus?
Yeah, roughly in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before we joined the South Shore Vocational Tech, and you can confirm this, Rich, before we were part of that district, anybody that was going to South Shore Voc Tech or to Norfolk Aggie or someplace was called what? Out of district?
Out of district students. And yeah, Norfolk Aggie, South Shore Voc Tech, we're still paying money to Norfolk Aggie.
Right.
We have students, especially students with special needs, in
Right.
certain cases that we can't accommodate. Some of them are out of district also.
Right. But that was buried in the budget. It was part of the budget.
It was part of the budget, but now that we're a member, and we have a representative, there's a school committee member from Marshfield on the South Shore Voc Tech board. I was the interim school committee member. I didn't have voting rights, but I was at every meeting.
Right.
But since we became a member this year, we do have an appointed member from the community that's on that school committee. It's not our district, not our budget.
Okay.
So
it's a separate line now.
it needs to be a separate line. Marshfield Public Schools
Yeah.
does not have any jurisdiction over South Shore Voc Tech.
Right. So, but before, if you're out of district, if you were one of the small number of students out of district at Norfolk Aggie or at South Shore Voc Tech, it was an out-of-district line item within the budget.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's why it didn't appear to people. And it actually was a relatively small number to you, right? Like less than 100 or so?
There was a handful of students.
Yeah, it was a handful of students going on. But anyway, we thought it was all resolved. March 17th, Town Administrator, this is a Town Hall press release. Town Administrator Michael Moresco and School Superintendent Patrick Sullivan are pleased to announce that an agreement has been reached to fund the Marshfield Public Schools at $60,336,636 for fiscal 26, reflecting a 4.57% increase over fiscal 25, which you would agree was a big increase over previous years.
Right.
Right. The agreement was finalized during a meeting this morning in the town administrator's office, attended by Superintendent Patrick Sullivan, Town Administrator Michael Moresco, Select Board Chair Lynn Fidler, School Committee Chair Sean Costello, Assistant Superintendent for Business Administration Tom Miller, School Committee Member Kendra Stetson, Treasurer Collector Sean Strobel, and Town Accountant Meg LeMay. This agreement was reached with the involvement of Lynn Fidler and Sean Costello, who were mentioned previously in that paragraph. But it was added on that this was reached with the involvement of Lynn Fidler and Sean Costello, who helped bridge the gap. Now, to me, that's politics right there. That's throwing in a little pump for Lynn Fidler. In my opinion, that's the way it appears. And then it gives some budget highlights, including school Chromebooks, school classroom technology, and a total school allocation again of $60 million plus. It was like Neville Chamberlain getting off the plane. We have reached an agreement with Herr Hitler. There's peace in our time, and it was it would look like a political move to me, But I'm a cynic. I'm a cynic. Okay. So now, interestingly, when there is a discussion with the select board last Thursday, there's a discussion of what's going to happen with the school budget. There's a discussion of the recognition of the need to come up with the $710,000 plus the $39,000 for South Shore Votech, which is again going to be taken up at the June 2nd meeting. But during the course of the discussion, what did we hear from Mr. Strobel in his communication with Mr. Morin and Eric Kelly and Steve Darcy? What did Mr. Strobel say about his department's relationship with the school department? What did he say?
So historically, I don't receive a detailed budget from the school department. What I receive is whatever the school committee has approved based off of the recommendation of either Tom Miller or the superintendent.
And Steve,
sure, yep.
Did you say you don't see anything in regards to a detailed?
Correct.
Did you say you don't see a detailed
We
report?
do not receive a detailed budget proposal from the school department.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
You can keep going if you want.
No.
Okay.
I just need to get clarity on that, that's all.
Totally, yeah. And has that been your professional experience in other communities that you've worked in?
That has not been my experience in other communities.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, Peter, this is my last question. Based on your experience working in different communities, how detailed of a budget have you received from the schools, and how detailed of a budget do you expect during your time here as interim town administrator?
It has been my experience in every community that I've been in that there is at least one night of advisory board that is devoted to a deep dive into a school budget. It would include VOC-Tech, and it's usually the practice, to not only have the superintendent of schools and the business manager available from the public schools. It would also be representatives from the vocational schools. It would discuss their budgets as well.
Thanks. And I know we've asked you to.
Well, we're drilling down into the source of the problem that arose regarding school budgets and the relationship with South Shore Votech. But didn't the school committee and the school department's financial guy, Mr. Miller, know what was going on back on January 7th? Didn't they know? Wasn't it talked about? Didn't they know what was going on? I think they did. And Rich Greer actually comes out being one of the heroes in this situation. That was
the big item is South Shore Votech tuition. We're paying for 3 students this year because on October 1st last year we only had 3 students. The big item is South Shore Votech tuition. We're paying for 3 students this year because on October 1st last year we only had 3 students attending. This year, on October 1st, we had 38 students attending. And that's 38 times 20 and change, $800,000. We're meeting on Friday with town finance, and we haven't begun to talk about this. But the town, I'm kind of speaking.
We're looking for a partnership.
Partnership with the town. It was a town
decision.
Town decision. Obviously, we share. If it's 800,000, it's $400,000 in revenue that won't come to education.
But from our view, it can't be looked at the same way, obviously, socio-vocational, technical, it was looked at in the past where we had 3 kids. It has to be looked at as an overarching town decision with a town partnership, or we just won't be able to support our budget.
It needs to be out of our budget.
You know, we get to the end of this, if we threw another $800,000 on there, it's just not feasible. It'll
It's not feasible.
decimate our school district,
Well,
so.
Yeah, quick comment on that,
Yeah.
right? So they have their own school committee rep from Marshfield. Needs to be a separate budget, can't be included in ours.
Yeah, that's gonna be our take.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's
It was a town decision.
So Rich Greer and other people, they come to the realization, like we're saying, there's a separation now that we're in the school district. Oh, and let me just back up for 1 second in my mind. I forgot to mention, as far as town meeting goes, usually when you see big articles or special interest articles come up and get voted on and move on, big clumps of people will get up and leave because they got what they want or they lost what they didn't want it or something like that. But in the case of the town meeting on Monday, people stayed, even after the ball fields. $2 million worth of work going into the ball fields. You know, God bless them. Hopefully it'll last more than 10 years. But even after those articles were voted, people stayed. People stayed. Maybe 100 people left out of 700, so we still had a great turnout. Now, there was also a slide on town expenses, including the pie chart that Mike Maresco presented for fiscal 2025 or 26. There we go. That's the fiscal 25 expenses. And I can't see it that close, but there's a school department right down there. It's listed at, what, $57 million? That sound about right? And that's for the last year.
57,702,307.
There we go. There is fiscal 25. We have it right here. And you can see a comparison how the operating budget has gone from 40,216 to 57,702. That's the operating budget. Actually, that's the total budget. That's the total budget, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's not the operating budget because operating expenses, which is salaries, is separate from expenses for like supplies and
Correct.
physical plant.
Right, we have it broken down right here. I actually brought the binder for next year's
Beautiful,
budget.
beautiful.
So it's right here. Unfortunately, you can't see it on TV. We do have...
well, we get the basic figures there as a comparison. So we've seen enrollment basically has been decreasing, but the thing that keeps going up is operating expenses, that is to say salaries.
Salaries is driving it. You know, if you look at our expenses, we've been pretty constant since 2005
It's
in
amazing.
terms of the
Folks,
expense money.
No, folks, I can see the figures here, and it's amazing how the expenses, that means like supplies, oil, gas, electricity, paper, et cetera.
Right.
The numbers kind of fluctuate. They're 8.7 million back in 2005, and then they dropped to 6.9 million in 2016, and then they go back up to 7.4 in the last fiscal year. So you're basically recycling your pencils.
Right. We took a deep dive early on, and we do this every year as far as what we have for expenses, and we sharpen our pencil.
Yeah.
If anybody uses those anymore.
Right.
I mean it figuratively, but you know, we've maintained roughly an average of $7.9 million in expenses over the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see here on the sheet, unfortunately, the folks in the audience can't see it. But you know, if you look at our expenses as a percentage of our overall budget, we start at 23.71 back in 2005. Projected next year is 12.93%.
Yeah.
Right?
Very good.
Yeah, so we've done a good job with the finances.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the charts here.
And I do have detailed. I mean, we have 833 line items. You're more than welcome to look through them all.
Well, I tell you, I mean, we have a very valued member of our ad hoc activist community who got involved with town government by going to the school committee meetings. Her name is Pam. You know her. She lives up in your neighborhood there. And she was the first person that I've known since I've been in Marshfield that really went in and when Scott Borstel was running things, and then when Tom Miller came on board, she really did the deep dive into the budget, and
Right.
it was overwhelming. It was really difficult. But here's the thing, 2 questions for you, Rich.
Sure.
What went wrong that caused the school budget to sort of become, or the school department, or people related, or things related to the school department to become sort of a poster child for what was wrong this year, okay? It became part of the budget kerfluffle, snafu, and what can be done to improve that? After what you heard from Mr. Strobel, after what you heard in that meeting you had back on January 7th, is there something that went wrong, actually went wrong? Or was there a misunderstanding about the South Shore Votech expenses?
I don't think there was any misunderstanding. We were very clear, even before we became a member, is once we become a member, this can't be attached to Marshfield Public School District. It needs to be a separate line item paid by the town because they have a different school committee.
Right.
Right. And all of the member towns, the 9 member towns, have to adequately fund South Shore Votech. And initially, I think I had told you before, and you already knew this, that I was the liaison. So we were prepared to actually give this presentation to the town, and then another member of the community was appointed as a school committee member. So as soon as that happened, we had...
Who was that? Zambello?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. So once that happened, we had no visibility in the South Shore Votech.
Oh, that's interesting. Mr. Zambello has been missing in action. I haven't seen or heard from him lately. Interesting.
Yeah, I know
Thanks
of him.
for reminding me.
I don't
Okay.
know if I've ever met him.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not here to point fingers.
No,
at
I'm not
anybody,
either.
but-
I'm just saying, you just reminded me, that's right, he was appointed.
Right.
And yet I haven't seen him around, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, you saw back in the January meeting, we had discussed this. We actually had many discussions months before that, and I would say that our budget subcommittee. You had mentioned Sean and Kendra. They were on our budget subcommittee. They did a phenomenal job working with Tom, and the rest of us work with Tom also. Like, any one of the 5 members on the board has a really good handle on this budget.
Yeah.
And Tom does a phenomenal job. And it was presented to the town. And to me, it seems, I didn't see anything or read too much into the comments that I saw here, because I could take them a number of different ways depending on the mood. Well, I mean the mood of the in the room itself when it was happening, because I'd need to see what happened before and after that.
There was a lot of stress. I saw some very testy exchanges between the town administrator and people on both on the advisory board and on the select board. And I don't know what the source of that was. But let me ask you more specifically, why was the $710,000 not being presented during the advisory board meetings as a separate line item on the warrant? Why didn't it appear on the warrant?
I can't answer that because it's not us, right? We made that information available.
So you're saying that was all provided?
It was all provided.
Even though Sean Strobel says, in his experience, he's not getting a detailed budget. Does that mean he's not getting the Bible, or?
And I'd have
you have to work it
imagine
out.
that he's had access to this. I mean, you're looking at it right here, right? There's nothing to hide.
Right.
You know, typically the way we do our budget is what's the increase or decrease, right? So we take our 833 line items and, okay, fuel's going up, so we can guesstimate what that percentage is. You know, supplies are going up. So we apply a percentage to each one of those items, and that's how we develop our budget. We have the exact same expenses, but, you know, within reason every year. And, yeah, our budget is a single line item, right, that's approved, and it's based upon these 833 line items. Which
And that's based on state law, right? State law says that the town meeting cannot drill down and make edits or amendments to the components of your school budget.
Once they, I mean, there's case law that supports this, but once they allocate our budget or approve our budget, they can't tell us how to spend it.
Right.
And we ran into this with there was the seatbelt thing way back when, right? Because that would have forced us to spend our budget a certain way.
I'm just saying that for the education of the viewing audience that may not know that when you look at your warrant and you vote on the school budget, all these other departments are sometimes broken down, like the DPW has multiple divisions that you vote on individually. but education is just called education total, right? You can't like drill into the education budget. You can vote to not ratify this, to not appropriate that $59 or $60 million, and then you can force the school department and the school committee to go back and rework the budget and bring the numbers down, but you can't amend and do line item vetoes or amendments.
Right. Imagine sitting through this. So just hypothetically, I present
Right.
this budget at town meeting, and we
Right.
have 833 different items to approve. It would take months.
And you have subcommittees too, looking at different sections, or do you have
Well-
to go through it all?
Well, I handle contract negotiations.
Right.
Tom Miller's involved with that, obviously, because of salaries.
Mm-hmm.
It's myself and Laura Braid, actually. I'm not going to take full credit for it, but Laura and I do the contract
Yep.
negotiations, so that accounts for all the salary stuff. As far as the overall budget, right now it's Sean and Kendra. I've been on that committee in the past. We tend to change up so that everybody's cross-trained in how to perform all the different functions that we require.
Yeah, you get to serve on different committees.
Right.
You rotate through the different committees
Yep.
as you do that.
And then it's presented to us. They
Yeah.
put together a pretty comprehensive PowerPoint slide, plus, this book here,
Right.
which spells everything out. This has town budget, it has school budget. So the only thing's really hidden from the public here, I hear a lot, people always ask me about the budget, is we have roughly $7.9 million is the only thing the public doesn't know about. All of the other stuff is published in the annual town report.
The $7.9 million for,
Out of our budget, the $7.9 million in expenses
Expenses.
is the only thing that's not published on an annual basis, because all of the salaries are in the town report. Right, so if somebody wants to go through and do a deep dive into that 7.9 million, we don't have anything to hide. We're more than welcome. Publishing this online can be problematic. We can't do it real time. You'd have to hire several people to maintain it. But if anybody ever had a question for me, I'm more than happy to go through it with them.
well, this is part of what has to be revamped in this town. And actually, our temporary administrator has said, and at the urging especially of Eric Kelly, to come up with some suggestions as to how the budget process and educate. There's Peter Marin right there. Did I say Tom? Well, I meant Peter Marin. He was the administrator in Norwell, and he's also a city councilor up in Braintree. And he's like sort of a hired gun now, goes from town to town, filling in on a temporary basis. But one thing that I think he's going to be charged with, and I know again with the urging of Eric Kelly, is can you come up with some ideas on how to proceed in the future? And I'm hoping he works with Tom Miller, Mr. Strobel, you, in order to sort of find out how can we make this easy to access, and maybe even provide some time for people to, if they, you know how it is, you offer something to the public and say, we're going to have a seminar or a discussion on one thing or another.
Right.
And then 3 people show up.
So we're working towards, getting this online. We
Yeah.
still have some work to do on our website.
Other towns do it.
Other towns, Duxbury is a good example, right?
Yeah.
I know they do it. So coordinating all of that with the systems that we currently have in place, it's a little bit of work. So it's not going to happen overnight. We've discussed this in the past. We have nothing to hide, so we're more than happy to show this information to people. It's just having it readily available online right now, there's a little difficulty in that.
For all the online services and internet access that people have, there's more information available, and for all of the ways that it's now can be made accessible, it seems like it's hard to some cases hard to understand. Maybe just because of the volume that's out there.
Right.
Budgets aren't simple anymore, like Marshfield 1934. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like the town report, which is one of my pet peeves. They issue this town report, and it's so full of inaccuracies and missing information. And from year to year, the financial data in the back varies in the format. So it's like there's no consistency. So I always question this at town meeting when they ask us to approve and accept the town report. And I point out, for example, that my term as a housing commissioner is listed as expiring in 2027 when it's expiring in 2028, and a host of other problems in here. And so my question now is, should this be online? And what are we paying to print this big fat book?
Right.
I bet this is a $100,000 job easily.
Oh, yeah, I imagine it's very expensive.
And nobody seems to know, and I asked the question at town meeting, who put this together? Nobody knows. It's just like, it's like, you know, the old story about how, you know, God exists because for man to have evolved on earth, it would be like a stopwatch assembling itself on a tree stump, just spontaneously, you know what I'm saying? So
right,
the odds of it happening, it's like, how did this assemble itself? All right, did God do it? Forgive me, Lord, I don't mean to be blasphemous. So anyway, maybe this should be online, or maybe it can be in a reduced format, and maybe we don't have to spend who knows how many thousands of dollars to do that. But what you're saying, yeah, that sounds like there needs to be an initiative to move in that direction.
Right. One thing I want to bring up, not to hijack your show.
Not at all.
But you can see here on the spreadsheet,
Okay.
right? So we have a budgeted item.
Yep.
And you can see, you know, unfortunately the folks at home can't see it, but we've overspent that, according to this, right?
The town meeting budget? Or which
No,
one?
so this is what we based our budget on, this column. This is our actual spend. And you notice in some cases, the actual spend is more than what we budgeted.
Some places it's less.
Right, but our overall budget, we came in on the mark, right? Because this is really a virtual budget. We have cost centers and everything else, but under our single line item, we have the freedom to move. It's like, okay, we overspent that. What are we gonna? How are we gonna adjust that?
Right.
Right. So it creates a lot of noise if we put this online, because everybody's you know, an accountant, right? They're gonna go look at this.
But in some cases, you're gonna see a red flag. In some cases, you're gonna see
correct.
Because you're also calculating percent changes and changes from year to year.
Oh, absolutely.
It's gonna stick out.
Yeah, and I'd welcome somebody to find a mistake in this, because that helps us, right?
Well, that's why we pay Mr. Miller the big bucks.
Right, right. And I don't think that there's no mistakes in here. But the point is, if you see something that's overspent, now that creates noise because people pick up on it. And how many people does it take to resolve that noise?
Right.
And if you have 833 line items and you have the entire population of Marshfield trying to diagnose it, it can be problematic. So we got to come up with a workable solution.
Yes. And do you find that there is anything in particular that, I mean, that's going down or going up this coming fiscal year? Because I've also heard that there's going to be a big drop-off due to attrition.
In terms of salaries?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a big drop-off. We have maybe a dozen folks retiring.
Well, that's significant. That's in the over 500,000 anyway.
Right, but that can also help balance a shortfall.
The other increases. What's the status of the teacher's contract right now?
We'll be up this year.
This year. So
yeah, depending on what happens Saturday, I may or may not be negotiating it. But
So the contract is ending at the end of this school year.
Right. All the contracts we're going through right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got 2 or 3 of them behind us already. We've already signed.
For different segments of the force?
Yeah, secretaries, custodians. I think we did CAF workers already. Or I don't know. They all blend together.
Are you on that committee now?
I'm still on that. Yeah. So Laura and I do all the negotiations.
Okay. So what's left to negotiate right now?
SESPs, ESPs, the teachers' aides, as well as teachers will be coming up.
Okay. And typically, what's the duration of a contract?
Well, they're all 3-year contracts.
All 3 years?
Yep.
And typically, do you expect them to be negotiated and settled by the start of the next school year?
We try to. I don't want anybody working without a contract.
Right.
So we try our best. You know, it's not fair to the workers, right? I mean, fortunately, we're Marshfield. We have a good rapport with the bargaining units. So it's not like I guess you see in some of the cities where, you know, they're button heads and all of that. We all know each other. A lot of the folks live in town. They know what the budgets are up front.
Yeah.
Very reasonable.
So when can you expect for these contracts to be settled, and how will they be settled, and will they have to be ratified by town meeting? What's that
No, no,
process?
so we do that, the school committee does that. So the Marshfield Teachers Association will ratify on their end, and then we'll do the same with
I
the
see.
school committee, and then it's a done deal.
And then it's a done deal.
Yep.
And do you have a projection for that, for those expenses next year? Do you anticipate, or will the raises maybe be retroactive?
Well, yeah, anything that's outside the contract year, we make that up.
So you've got a budget, and you've already calculated what your salaries are going to be for the next fiscal year, starting in August 1st, right?
Right, yeah, that's an agreement because, yeah, the budget's already set by the time we finish negotiations. So year one of any contract that we do, well, we already know up front what is the max, because we work out all of those numbers.
Oh, you have a max number.
Well, we do, because we can't overspend our budget.
And what's the max number usually based on, like a 2% increase or a 3%?
Typically, you would see, I mean, this is just kind of a rule of thumb, you'd see 2% a year over 3 years.
Right.
So 6%.
So 6% over 3 years.
Yeah, and that's pretty standard. I mean, it not necessarily 2, and 2, but, and it's not to say that's an absolute, but that's just kind of a rule of thumb, and I've seen that in other districts also.
Yeah. I mean, it could be as low as 1 or 1.5, or it could be higher.
It could be. You know, a good example is if we had a budget set and in order to stay within our budget, we could only raise it a fraction of a percent, well, that would happen.
But now you have to communicate with Mr. Strobel and the town administrator, whoever that's going to be, because they have to be thinking on this. They have to be on the same page with you guys.
Why?
And well, in terms of like why, right?
No, our budget's fine. I don't want
I
it
like
screwed
the
up.
turmoil, right?
I don't need anybody screwing up our budget. We have a good handle on it.
But they have to, like Mr. Strobel is saying, I'm not getting details. Okay, that's what you can go duke it out with him.
But why does he need it? We ask for a number, and either we get it or we don't get it. He adds, and I don't mean this as a shot against him, but what value does the town treasurer add to our efforts?
Well, because you've already factored in projected raises.
Right, and we give him that number.
Okay.
So we have
And
a.
what if he says no? Then what? Do you tell the teachers, sorry, we're not going to, we have to
No,
hold
I
up?
mean, we could work collaboratively with him. He's more than welcome to see all of these numbers, but, you know, I think.
Well, it's kind of like you're not giving him much choice.
I don't know if that's the case.
You don't see it that way?
I don't believe that he hasn't seen this, is where I'm going with it.
Well, he's seen the trends, and he's seen the history, but has he seen he's seen the numbers of what you're projecting for operating expenses, right?
Yeah, and we put together a pretty robust PowerPoint presentation. I know for a fact he sees it, the administrator sees it, and I'm not going to say Mr. Strobel, but the treasurer sees it, the town administrator sees it, the select board sees it, the advisory board sees it. Everyone in town sees this.
Except the taxpayer. And that's the result, is the press release that says, after the big powwow, you settled on a $60,336,000 budget for fiscal '26. That's the result of all that we just talked about.
Right, and the reason you see Sean and Kendra in there, because they are the budgeting subcommittee for the school committee.
Right. So why the 4.57% increase? Is there any?
That's lower than what we need to have level services.
Really?
Yes. So it was advertised.
Level services. Now this is a very interesting term. Level services. What is a level service?
It's to maintain what we had from last year.
Okay. In terms of personnel and
Personnel,
curriculum and
yeah, all of that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So they're offering us less than what we actually need. We do
Really?
have, the school committee has contingency plans so that we won't have to lay anybody off or cut programs or any of that.
Wow.
So we initially asked for, I believe it was 5.2%, and the town came back and said that we only asked for 3% and we refused to meet with them. Meanwhile, they haven't
Really?
honored any of the
That's not
agreements
nice.
that we have in place for free cash. We have 2 agreements in place. They've ignored those for the past 6 years.
Okay.
So they're useless at this point.
Right.
How do you enforce something that's over 5 years old?
Right.
Yeah, and even they're shorting us on our budget going into next year.
Are there so-called school unfunded mandates?
Yeah, don't get me going on that.
Okay, 'cause I think we actually had a slide that we only have like 3 minutes left in the show. There you go. There's the unfunded mandates. Do you recognize any of those? I'm sorry, I don't mean to treat you like we're in the Karen Reed trial, but I'm just, you're not on cross-examination.
So that it doesn't even put a dent in what we consider
Really?
to be unfunded mandates. And
No,
we've gone back at the state year after year after year.
Yeah.
Some of them, the state comes back and says, yeah, okay, you don't have to do it. But what they do is they find an old law and amend the old law, and they don't have to fund it. Anything new, any new laws, they have to fund.
Wow.
And don't quote me, you could Google what the cutoff date for that is. I was thinking it was like 1981 or
Oh, there's
something
like a
that.
statute of limitations or something?
Yeah, so
Or-
you know, just say, and I'm throwing out this number. It may or may not be accurate, but just say any law created prior to 1981, you're stuck with. Anything
Yeah.
created after that, you can fight.
It sounds like a really challenging job. I thank you. How many years you've been doing this now?
I've been doing it 11 years.
You
up
think
for
you got the
re-election.
hang of it finally? Or?
I'm starting to get it. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, people think I add value. If so, then they can vote for me.
Well, that's, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, and like I said, from what I've seen, that is the most difficult thing to digest in this town. Is the school budget. Well, anyway, I think we covered a lot here. The election again is on Saturday. Rich Greer is running for re-election. There are 2 seats right now, one held by Lara Brate, one held by Rich Greer, and you have a challenger named Scott Swain. He's the third party in. So the 3 of you are going to have to duke it out for the 2 spots. And I wish you good luck.
Well, thanks, Joe.
You know,
Thanks for having me on the
there
show.
again, 9 to 4 on Saturday at the Marshfield High School gym. But you can vote at the town hall tomorrow and Friday, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, until 4 tomorrow, and until 12:30 just after lunch, when town hall exits, and everybody runs from town hall like they're on a fire pole on Friday afternoon. All right? I often joke with some of the folks there. I said, you get out of town hall so fast that you should put in a fire pole or a bat pole, you know? Anyway, I think that's about all we have time for tonight. There's so much more to talk about. I want to, at some point, maybe next week, I'm going to mention McKee-Berger Mensuelo. Okay, since we're talking about sketchy contracts, okay, and sketchy dealings, we observed the anniversary of the McKee-Berger Mensuelo controversy from 1978, and there was a commission set up by none other than Andy Card and Phil Johnston, rest his soul, who just passed away. Responding to us, this is an article titled "A Place Where Old Soldiers Won't Fade Away." It talks about the creation of the Office of Inspector Generals and, you know, means to keep track of spending and illegal activities in government. Responding to a steady public outcry, Representatives Andy Card and Philip Johnston introduced bipartisan legislation establishing the 7-member Ward Commission as an independent investigative body. A robust factual record spotlighted systemic weaknesses which allowed a culture of self-enrichment to thrive. So this is just a little thing off a tangent that I want to talk about next time around. But the main thing is, don't rely on your so-called government to hold your officials and the budget people accountable. Get involved, take Rich Greer up on his offer, and become friends with Tom Miller, whoever you have to. But mainly, vote and participate, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And then you lose all your hair like me and get old. No, that's not true. See you later, folks. Thanks again to Rich Greer for being here.